And we begin tonight with Fox 5 political analyst Carl Luna. Carl, good to see you once again. You've had some time now to sort of think about this debate. Overall, give us your thoughts on whether you think it'll make a difference with voters and how the candidates performed.
I think, Kathleen, is going to make a difference precisely because I don't think it's going to make a difference. What the Republicans needed was for some earth-shaking to go on to try to change the current trajectory of the race. That's kind of got a little derailed by President Trump's getting sick, being in the hospital. That became the focus with COVID, and also the debate performance last week. All has conspired to put Joe Biden moving ahead in the polls. I don't think Mike Pence's performance is going to change that. Kamala Harris did the first rule of a vice presidential debate. She did no harm, and she probably showed herself to be reasonably vice presidential.
So, Carl, Vice President Pence is the head of the White House task force. He had to defend the Trump administration's handling of the pandemic and that Rose Garden event where it's believed the president and several others contracted the virus. Let's listen to his response here.
If I may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a great deal of speculation about it. My wife Karen and I were there and honored to be there. Many of the people who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested for coronavirus, and it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates with the coronavirus, but a government takeover of health care, the Green New Deal, all government control. We're about freedom.
All right, so considering the rising number of COVID cases across the country right now, the president's own health as well, did he make a solid case for how they have handled this pandemic tonight?
What he tried to do, Andrew, was a little bait and switch by trying to pivot, but he didn't have enough time to say, look, the Biden-Harris want to take away all your freedoms. They're socialist communists and try to divert from COVID. The simple reality is he was in charge of the COVID task force, and you would think a number one priority is keeping the president of the United States safe. And they failed in that. The fact that the president caught it, despite all the protections, should be something that you then say, gee, we really have to double down on our efforts. He deflected. He talked about how the Obama administration didn't do well with the previous flu. I think that is by far the weakest argument that he had. And also, it's probably where the administration is taking its biggest hit right now.
And it seems that Senator Harris, Carl, kind of jumped on that and called the pandemic a failure herself and the Trump administration's part in it. Here's what she had to say on the subject.
You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage to be a leader speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves. But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker, knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in a food line because of the ineptitude of an administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people. So let's talk about caring about the American people. The American people have had to sacrifice far too much because of the incompetence of this administration. It is asking too much of the people.
Susan, we talked about
it is asking too much of the people. That they would not be equipped with the information they need to help themselves to protect their parents and their children.
So, Carl, where do you think that argument landed with voters?
Well, again, that was the strongest suit for Kamala Harris and the Democrats to play. COVID, no matter what happened on the president's watch, there have been 200,000 deaths. The economy tanked. 11 million still unemployed. You lost double that number, and you've only gotten half back. But what Mike Pence would always try to do would then be to pivot to new Green Deal, pivot to tax policy. If Republicans can keep people focusing on the big economic issues and then social issues like abortion, they have a better chance of rallying things, but COVID keeps dragging them down. They've got to be able to change that narrative by the next presidential debate. Otherwise, the trajectory is not looking good for them.
Let me ask you about expectations, because Kamala Harris obviously is a former prosecutor. She can make an argument, but a lot of expectations were placed on her because of that, but also the added pressures of being a woman and a woman of color. How did she meet all these expectations?
Well, and that's the difficult task she had before her, because Mike Pence, noticed he talked over everybody, but he did it in a much more monotone than the president did. It was kind of like undramatic interruptions going on and incivility. So by comparison, it looked a lot better than last week. But Kamala Harris's difficulty was if she doesn't respond to that, she looks like she's being run over by the guy. If she does too much, she looks like she's being too pushy about it. Women have a more difficult time threading that needle. She seemed to do a pretty good job with it. She had a couple of those, excuse me, Mr. Vice President, I'm talking moments. And on the whole, they both got the same amount of time to speak. Though my own immediate perception was that Mike Pence seemed to be trying to dominate the conversation, and she was always on the defense.
Yeah, they got the same time within 3 seconds from what I saw tonight. Carl Luna, thank you very much for your analysis of tonight. We're also getting some reaction over this debate. We want to check in now with our Phil Blauer, who's at the Fox 5 News feed.
All right, Andrew, you might expect right away we heard from President Trump moments after the debate ended. Here's what he tweeted out. He simply said, Mike Pence won big. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, you made us all proud tonight. Kamala Harris herself had this little short video she put out. Thank you for all the support. Let's keep this going right after the debate. We haven't really heard from Mike Pence. He's been retweeting a lot of stuff, but a person that we did hear from was his wife, Karen. Home run, Mr. Vice President, at Mike Pence. Debates 2020, Team Trump.